Welcome everyone to This Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a really fascinating and deeply significant topic, the principles and practice of Qurbani. Whether you're already super well versed in Islamic jurisprudence or you're just looking for a clear, structured guide on how this ancient practice actually operates in the modern world, you are exactly in the right place. We're going to break down the whole shebang, from the strict financial and logistical rules right down to the profound spiritual essence that sits at the very core of the ritual. It's this perfect, beautiful blend of faith, history, and real-world practical guidance.
Okay, let's dive right into this. To truly grasp what Qurbani is all about, we absolutely have to start here with this really profound verse from the Quran. It explicitly says, "Their meat will not reach Allah, nor will their blood, but what reaches Him is piety from you." And honestly, this anchors literally everything we're going to discuss today. You see, God doesn't need the physical animal. What He's looking for is the purity of your intention, something known as taqwa. The physical sacrifice, that's merely a vessel. The real sacrifice is completely internal. It's all about letting go of your ego and demonstrating just absolute devotion.
So here is our roadmap for today's explainer. We'll start with the heart of Qurbani, move into who must perform it, selecting the animal, and sharing and distribution. And finally, we'll wrap up with modern mistakes and society and environment.
All right, let's kick things off with Section 1, the heart of Qurbani. Before we get into all the nitty-gritty rules, we really need to understand the origins. The entire practice stems from what is widely considered the ultimate test of faith. According to tradition, Prophet Ibrahim, or Abraham, received a command in a dream from God to sacrifice his most beloved possession in the world, his son, Prophet Ismail. And despite the unimaginable heartbreak of that request, Ibrahim submitted. But what's truly incredible is that his son Ismail gave his willing consent, literally telling his father to do exactly as he was commanded. Just as Ibrahim was about to carry out the act, God miraculously replaced Ismail with a ram from Jannah, or heaven. So, Qurbani isn't just about an animal. It's an annual revival of this exact spirit of unconditional, unquestioning submission to a higher power.
Moving right along to Section 2, who must perform it? So whose shoulders does this obligation actually fall upon between the 10th and 12th of the Islamic month of Dhul Hijjah? Well, to answer that, we have to look at the concept of Nisab. Think of Nisab as the minimum threshold of wealth. According to the Hanafi school of thought, if you're a sane, adult Muslim and you own wealth equivalent to 7.5 tolas of gold or 52.5 tolas of silver, or of course the cash equivalent, beyond your basic daily needs and debts, Qurbani is Wajib. That means it's mandatory for you. Because the value of silver is much lower today, that silver threshold is generally the one used so that way more people can participate and gain the spiritual reward. But importantly, the poor, travelers, minors, and folks who are heavily in debt, they are completely exempt.
Now, what's really interesting about this next concept is that we get to bust a very common myth. A lot of people tend to confuse the wealth threshold for Qurbani with the one for zakat, the annual charity. For zakat, you actually have to hold on to that nisab wealth for one full continuous year. But for Qurbani, you absolutely don't. If you suddenly hit that financial threshold at any point during those 3 specific days of Qurbani, boom, it instantly becomes mandatory for you. It's a very specific, strictly time-bound obligation. All right, Section 3, selecting the right animal.
You literally can't just pick any animal for this. Only domestic livestock are allowed, so no wild animals like deer. And age is a massive factor here. Camels, they've got to be at least 5 years old. Cows and buffaloes must be at least 2 years old. Goats and sheep must be 1 year old. But wait, here is a super fascinating exception. A 6-month-old sheep ram is perfectly acceptable, but only if it looks plump and large enough to pass for a 1-year-old from a distance. Pretty interesting, right? However, keep in mind that exception does not apply to goats. Goats strictly must be a full 365 days old. No exceptions.
Now here's a number you're going to see a lot during this time: 7. While a goat or a sheep is meant to be a sacrifice for just one person, larger animals like a cow, a buffalo, or a camel can actually be shared by up to 7 people. But there's a really strict catch. Every single one of those 7 participants must have the pure intention of worship. If even one person in that group is just doing it to stock their freezer with cheap meat or to show off to their neighbors, the entire sacrifice is invalidated for everyone. Plus, all the meat has to be divided strictly by weight using a proper scale. Guesswork just won't cut it.
The absolute crucial point here is that the animal must be healthy and dignified. In fact, there are 4 specific defects that will completely invalidate an animal for Qurbani: clear blindness in one eye, severe sickness,
lameness where it literally can't even walk to the place of slaughter, or being so incredibly weak and emaciated that it has no bone marrow left. On top of that, if the animal has broken horns from the root, or if more than 1/3 of an ear or tail is missing, it becomes totally unacceptable. You're offering something to God, so it absolutely must be of good quality.
Section 4. Sharing and meat distribution. When the actual day of slaughter arrives, the tradition, or the sunnah, is to treat the animal with immense care. That means laying it on its left side facing the Qibla, which is the direction of Mecca, and reciting Bismillah Allahu Akbar, meaning in the name of Allah, Allah is the greatest, right before a swift, humane cut.
And this brilliantly illustrates what happens next. When it comes to the meat, the highly recommended distribution is this perfect 1/3 split. 1/3 for your own family, 1/3 for your relatives, friends, and neighbors, and 1/3 strictly given away to the poor and needy. It's just a beautiful system, isn't it? It perfectly balances personal joy, community ties, and social welfare all at once. Now, it is worth noting that if you have a really large family and you legitimately need the meat to feed them, you are permitted to keep it all, but this 1/3 split is absolutely the gold standard. Okay, aside from the meat, there are incredibly strict rules around the animal's skin, or hide. You can keep it to use personally, like, say, turning it into a prayer mat. But if you decide to sell it, 100% of that money must be given away to a charity, like an orphanage. You cannot keep a single cent. Furthermore, butchers must be paid with separate independent cash. You can never, ever use the meat or the hide to compensate the butcher for their labor. That is strictly prohibited. Which brings us to Section 5. Modern mistakes and rulings.
Look, today we're seeing a really stark contrast between pure tradition and modern pitfalls. The prophetic tradition, the Sunnah, is deeply rooted in humility, pure intention, and the humane treatment of the animal. Yet today, it's sadly all too common to see people showing off these massive, expensive animals on social media, bragging about the price tag, or just roughly handling animals in chaotic markets. These actions completely destroy the spiritual reward of the act. Seriously, if your ego's involved, the sacrifice is rejected. Full stop.
Let's rapid fire through some vital modern FAQs we pulled directly from the sources. First up, bank loans. You deduct your immediate debt, and if your remaining wealth is still over that Nisab threshold we talked about earlier, Qurbani is Wajib. Second, husbands and wives. If a husband and wife both independently own wealth above the threshold, they must each perform a separate Qurbani. The husband doing one doesn't magically cover the wife's obligation. Third, sending money to perform Qurbani in a poorer country abroad is 100% valid and honestly, a fantastic way to feed the needy. Finally, you are totally allowed to combine an akika share, which is a sacrifice for a newborn child, within the 7 shares of a large animal like a cow.
And finally, Section 6, Society, Environment, and Spirituality. Let's move to this and see how this builds a better society as a whole. In Islamic tradition, there's a famous saying, cleanliness is half of faith. Leaving foul-smelling waste or blood out on public streets is actually a huge violation of civic duty and faith. The sources outline 3 very strict steps for environmental cleanup. Step 1, wash away the blood immediately with water. Step 2, safely bury the animal waste underground where it won't cause disease. And Step 3, use bleach or a strong disinfectant to completely sanitize the area. Caring for the environment is quite literally as much a part of the ritual as the sacrifice itself.
And that brings us to our final provocative thought. What inner animal or ego are you sacrificing this year? Tying it all back to the very first concept we looked at today, the physical act, the strict rules, the exact distribution, it's all just a symbolic framework. The ultimate goal is slaughtering your own arrogance, your own greed, and your attachment to the material world so you can achieve true taqwa. It's such a powerful reminder of submission, community, and personal growth. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, stay curious, and I'll catch you next time.